Hello and welcome back to a special edition of 5 Sports. I'm your host, Evan Rudenberg. Alongside me is Matthew Choi. And today we are breaking down the NHL conference finals, the ending of those series, and the game one of the Stanley Cup finals, as well as the rest of the series. We'll give our predictions to that, as well as a recap of the NBA conference finals that are going on right now. It's an exciting time to be a sports fan if you're a fan of either of the two leagues. So now we are here to break it down. We're here to break down all the action, all the craziness that's been going on over the last week. Matthew, let's start with the Vegas Montreal series, and Montreal surprisingly dethroning the Vegas Golden Knights after a high perch, and Montreal kind of snuck their way into the Stanley Cup Finals. Did it a little bit quietly, but did it pretty ruthlessly.
Yeah, I think like we've been saying this since their first series against the Leafs. The way they beat Vegas is kind of like the way they beat every single series, doing every single series in the playoffs so far. No, we talk about how Montreal, they're not the most talented team, but they got the defense to uh make up for that, and then of course behind them in goalie they have Carey Price, one of the best goalies of this generation. But offensively, no, they got Cole Caulfield. They're young. They and Nick Suzuki. They got these young guys who get the offense moving. They're not the most talented, but they can do just enough to like score when they need to. And they, like you said, they've sneaked past the teams that they beat. They snuck past the Vegas. We all have pegged Vegas as more talented team. We all pegged Jets as the most talented team, even though they got swept. And of course, we all thought Leafs were going to win that game in five, the series in five. So the way credit to Montreal, because the way they played smart. They played the game very smart. They played smart hockey. I'm trying to think of the right word for
Yeah,
it. But you know what I'm saying. Like,
I do. Yeah, they're playing very aggressive. Montreal
yeah.
Canadiens. They're doing all the right things defensively, and they're allowing themselves to really transition from offense to defense when they have to. The one thing I would say about Vegas, it really their offense went dry.
Yeah.
Half the goals scored by defenders in the series, like Carey Price basically took away any momentum that they had. And the four guys that they're credit Montreal are Weber, Edmondson, Sherrod, and or not Edmondson, and Petrie. Those are the four guys on defense that have just really been shutting down teams' best attacking lines, and they're eating on minutes, and they really got themselves into the finals by playing just hard, aggressive hockey.
Yeah, I think it comes down to we see them limit, absolutely shut down Matthews and Marner. We didn't see much production from uh guys like, I mean, Sheffield was out, but from guys like Blake Wheeler and like the guys in Winnipeg you expect to score. Uh, it really came down to like, will we see them do the same to Vegas, and they did the same thing. Like I said, we didn't see the talent of Vegas really show. They seem like very even teams throughout the whole series. We kept on flip flopping on who was actually having better games and who was actually winning. Like, and this came down, once again, came down to overtime, and came down to not eventually necessarily being the better team, but making the right plays by the end of the game.
100%. And I feel like, what you just said really encapsulates Montreal. It feels like a bunch of opportunities. The
Yep.
Leafs gifted them an opportunity. The Leafs being, I don't want to say inexperienced, but naive in the fact that I think they thought the series wrapped up at 3-1. Winnipeg, I just don't have the words to describe how bad Winnipeg are. They flat out choked after beating. And same thing, they had momentum, and I think they thought that they were going to grind out a win against Montreal, and just didn't happen. They ran into Carey Price, and then Vegas, opportunity. Vegas had two tough series. Minnesota, they had to come back in game seven, down 3-2, so they had to grind. They had to grind against Colorado, down 2-0, and they won four straight. So I think, could we use fatigue as an excuse? Maybe. Possibly Vegas definitely had a harder run in compared to Montreal.
Yeah.
Sweeping Winnipeg definitely allowed them to rest up for Vegas. So I think now we have to go into Tampa. We saw game one, what happened. It's going to be I think Tampa is just a different animal to what Montreal's played so far.
Yeah, I agree, because Tampa Bay, they they have the defense and they have the goaltending to match what Montreal has. Plus, they have everything that they have on offense. And we saw last game, I guess, that's kind of what we saw Kucherov go for a hat trick. Once again, Kucherov, who was injured previously, comes back and doesn't skip a single beat. Uh, and everyone else kind of you see what Tampa Bay offenses has been doing all season. Everyone has been kind of chipping in, and the star players that you expect to step up have been doing that.
The balance on Tampa is incredible. We can transition over to the Islanders, a series. I mean, the Islanders are a great team, and I think the Islanders had the best shot to be outside of Vegas, had the best shot to beat Tampa Bay. But they ran into Vasilevsky, they ran into Hedman, they ran into a team that doesn't have any flaws. And as well as Islanders, I don't think the Islanders could have played that series any better than they did. Tampa Bay is just one of the best teams we've seen in the last 20 years. They have some of the best players in every position. And when you go down their roster, there is no hole because they're four lines deep, and the speed they play at, the physicality, they show night in, night out. There's no really weakness. There's no area of, weakness that you could target if you're the opposition. That's what I've started to really notice with Tampa over the last 2 years. As much as I try to find a weakness, if Vasilevsky's on his game and you have, your attackers giving you 3 or 4 goals, you can't really win. It doesn't matter who you are in this league. There's no one that can beat Tampa Bay when they're at their best.
Yeah, and I think you said best. Like, this is a team with really no weakness, and like you said, you can't beat this team at its best. Like, the only way, I think, for the past few years when Tampa Bay left the playoffs or got kicked out of earlier round, we see one area of the stacked team like not show up. But when every player is showing up on this team, it's kind of like you said, it's an unstoppable team. It's one of the best teams we've seen like in the last decade. And I think what we saw with these Islanders wasn't the Islanders' inability to beat Tampa Bay. It was Tampa Bay's inability to really lose the series.
Yeah, I mean, basically victims, of their own demise. Like we saw against Columbus, it's one of the biggest shocks we've seen because we knew what Tampa Bay did in the regular season. We knew what they're capable of. When you have a goalie as good as Vasilevsky, surrounded by the team, around him, guys like Victor Hedman, Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point, those are just your stars. Look at who scored yesterday. Blake Coleman chips in with a goal. They have guys like Yanni Gord who produces for them. I mean, there's just you can name any player on Tampa Bay and you could, prove their value to that roster. So it's really incredible the depth they have. And I can't see Montreal. I mean, I've said that throughout, the Stanley Cup playoffs.
We said that once each
round. They're running into a team that sees an opportunity to establish themselves as one of the greatest teams ever. When you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins in recent history, when they went back to back, how hard it is to repeat in hockey. It's so rare. So when you have a group of guys as talented as they are, I think they know the stakes. Stamkos in game 1 of the Islanders series made a mistake.
Yeah.
He said, "It's on me. I know I can't be doing that. The margin for error is so slim." And Montreal makes the exact same mistake on Tampa Bay's opening goal to Chernak. Same kind of pass across the middle of the ice, just gifting Tampa Bay an opportunity to go. And we know how good they are on the break. Tampa Bay, one of the best teams in the league, with an odd man rush. So my prediction for the series, for the Stanley Cup Finals, has to be Tampa in 6. I just think Montreal may just run out of gas towards the end. I think their run has been incredible, as much as I hate admitting it. Spirit and the unity of that group, the way they've come together through adversity, through everyone, kind of giving them no chance, giving them no credit for what they did in the regular season. They've come together. They've embraced the underdog label. No more than Brandon Gallagher, I think, the guy that basically embraces being he wants people to recognize Montreal and kind of the way they play. And Gallagher really kind of embodies you hit me, I'll hit you back, take no prisoners attitude. So
we saw that yesterday.
I mean, exactly. The way Tampa Bay knew that that's the guy they wanted to target. So that's what they did. Montreal deserves a praise. I don't care if I'm Canadian. It's not Canada versus America. I hate Montreal I hate the Montreal Canadiens. I'm a Leafs fan. I'm not gonna start cheering for the Montreal Canadiens because they're playing an American team. That's not how it works. If it was Calgary, maybe it's a different story because I really don't have any beef with Calgary. But Montreal or Ottawa or Boston, three teams I'll never root for under any circumstance. So I really hope Montreal does go down in flames. But all credit to them because they have put together an incredible postseason run.
Yeah, like you said, like even not as like a big Leafs fan as you are, I'm no way going for Montreal, but we have to really give credit for what they've been doing because I think it's fair to say like in any other division they wouldn't have really been a playoff team. As an interesting fact here is the Flyers had a terrible season, but they still had more regular season wins than the Montreal Canadiens, and yet the Montreal Canadiens are in the Stanley Cup Finals, and the Flyers didn't make the playoffs.
Well,
But
thank the bottom three teams for sucking just a little bit more than the Montreal Canadiens did. If you're a Montreal fan, thank Calgary, Vancouver, and Ottawa for being dumpster fires. They allowed you to enjoy this magical run. So the Quebecois, I hope they enjoy it.
I think it goes to show though, like just how good they've been in the playoffs. That being said,
Mhm.
I agree with you. I picked Tampa Bay in like six. I just think there's too much. There's just too much star power on Tampa Bay, and they have everything good about Montreal. Tampa Bay has a response to plus more,
Mhm.
and because I don't see Montreal taking this game any way past this. I would honestly argue it could be 4-5, but we've thought 4-5 like
Yeah.
several times. So at this point, I'll just say six.
The one thing that Montreal has done is they haven't let series get away from them. They haven't gone down 2-0
Yeah.
in any series. So I think game two is do or die for Montreal from a Canadian from a Canadian point of view. Yeah, if Tampa Bay wins and they go up 2-0, I mean, you're basically Montreal's playing catch up and they have to win the next two because if they go down 3-1 again, I can't see it happening against a team as kind of experienced and as, level headed as the Lightning are.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'll be a fun watch. Game two, really everything on the line. That goes Wednesday. We'll recap all of the Stanley Cup finals next week. Maybe not hopefully, if you hate the Montreal Canadiens, but if you're just a hockey fan in general, it's very likely that there will be game 6 or 7 hockey next week. So hopefully we'll be able to bring you basically nerve-wracking content
Well,
from
hopefully, if you
that point
hate
of
the
view.
Habs, hopefully we
Yeah.
will be talking about the Tampa Bay winning the Stanley Cup Finals.
But there's plenty up for grabs in the NHL right now for those two teams. So we will see who comes out on top. We'll see who steps up. But speaking of stepping up, Paul George has done just that for the LA Clippers. Rescued the Clippers from the brink of elimination, forced to the game 6. And the longer the Clippers are, as long as they're alive, the more kind of doubt creeps into the mind of the Phoenix Suns, especially Chris Paul, who's vying for that first finals berth.
Credit to Paul George. I think we never held back on the
100%.
words of Paul
Mm-hmm.
George, because we've been very critical of him last season, and that kind of carried over for stretches of the season and stretches of this playoffs. But we said that as long as he steps up and fills in the void left by Kawhi, Clippers does have a chance, and we doubt whether he can do it, but that's exactly what he has. And we got contribution from our guys like Reggie Jackson, from Marcus Morris, and
Yeah.
Clippers have been playing like a very good team. Does last game and then back in game 3, and even like the whole series, they haven't been making it easy for the Phoenix Suns.
Mm-hmm. They haven't. Yeah, credit to Paul George. He's playing like a superstar on both ends of the floor. I mean, the ankle break from Chris Paul is pretty gross. Yeah, Paul George, especially in the second half, when he's on, and you don't want to let that guy get hot. I think ever since game 1, Devin Booker has cooled down. I don't know if the broken nose has played a factor in that, but his shot just looks a little bit off. So if Devin Booker in any of the next 2 games can take over, like we know Devin Booker can take over, I don't think Clippers have a chance, but they have been playing great defense. Their small ball system has been working brilliantly. So Ty Lue has really, struck gold with that system. DeAndre Ayton should be feasting, but he outside of game 4, he really didn't. So that was a bit of a surprise for me from that point of view. I think DeAndre Ayton can get a lot more involved, and if I don't think there's anyone on the Clippers that can stop them. If they get Chris Paul, Devin Booker in the pick and roll with Ayton, I think that could be a huge weapon. And we just didn't see much of that in game 5. more so in game four, but for some reason they went away with that. Speaking of game four, I just want to say, from both teams' point of view, it was extremely disappointing, and it felt like the headline, whoever lost that game is going to be an opportunity blown. And that it felt like the Clippers really had to win that game. If Phoenix would have lost that game, it definitely would have been the other way around. But, in that fourth quarter, I think, Matthew, you know what I'm referring to. I mean, I thought there was like a lock on both rims. Everything was going in and out.
Yeah.
No one could hit a three. I mean, the start of that quarter, I think both teams were like 1 for 8. And I was just saying to myself, like, what the hell am I watching? I'm like, are these two teams, like, how did they get to the conference finals? I mean, it was one of the sloppiest quarters of basketball I think I've ever watched, that fourth quarter in game four.
Yeah, there are definitely a lot of things wrong with that quarter. I think not only that, I think the fishing was also very lopsided, to say at least.
I would agree with that, of course.
Yeah, and I just think it was really questionable like what was happening. You could always put things onto like uh it was just off night on both sides, because
Mhm.
that's clearly not something we expect to see from our teams, especially not in the playoffs. So it really comes down to that. But and it was in some ways concerning, but also kind of hilarious what we were watching because, like I said, you don't really expect to see this in like playoff basketball, not from two Western Conference teams.
No, not from two teams that have been, really elite scoring teams all year. The one thing I do want to mention, regarding these two teams, this series to me has felt like a 2v2 versus who can help every game. It feels like Devin Booker and Paul versus Reggie Jackson and Paul George, and who can be the side piece. Yesterday, Marcus Morris really stepped up. Patrick Beverley's defense came in clutch in the Clippers' first win. I think it was game two.
Yeah.
I get it wasn't game three. It was game two against the Phoenix Suns. And so Patrick Beverley has definitely gone out the doghouse. We didn't see much of him in the first series, not against Dallas, because he really couldn't guard Luka. And despite Luka being a point guard, at 6'10", Patrick Beverley really didn't have a place in that series, nor the series against who the Clippers beat round two.
Oh, Utah.
Utah. Yeah, Utah just had the size, so it's just difficult matchups for him. But Patrick Beverley has done a fantastic job on Devin Booker when Devin Booker has been off. He's definitely limited his scoring and his ability to fire off open shots and to create good passes for his teammates. That's really a key for Phoenix, playing in transition, spreading the floor, hitting transition threes, and that's when they're doing that, they're at their best. When they're controlling the tempo, playing at a high pace, and Chris Paul is able to manage the floor, and Devin Booker's getting open shots, and Jay Crowder's in the corner, and Bridges is maybe sitting in the key.
Yeah.
You have Aiden inside, so when Phoenix playing fast and they have movement, they have options. But I thought in that game five, they're very static. Their defense was very lethargic. They weren't, getting up on guys. They're, letting them take shots, and the Clippers were hitting shots. They wanted them to drive, but the Clippers said, if you're going to give me the shots, we'll take them.
They look a lot more passive on defense than what we've normally seen.
Yeah, and Phoenix has to be aggressive on defense. Jay Crowder was extremely disappointing to me yesterday. I don't think he brought the same intensity that we've seen and we know from Jay Crowder. I think they maybe thought the series in the bag with that Kawhi Leonard. Game 6 is a must, because I think if they go to 7, all that doubt creeps in. Game 7, then anything can happen. The Clippers, I think what we've seen is they are deep. They have guys that can step up. So it just depends on on a nightly basis who is that other guy. It could be a guy like Marcus Morris, was hot in that first half. Maybe Nicholas Batum, starts hitting some threes. You never know with the Clip. Terrence Mann, we saw what he can do. Terrence Mann can give you 20, 25, and that's really a bonus and a half. So game 6, Phoenix has to win game 6. You can't let that doubt creep in your mind. You can't let the Clippers ride that momentum, because I think if we've seen it so many times, down 3-1, if the Clippers force that game 7, I really can't bet against the Clippers if they manage to get it. But game 6 is going to go down to the last shot. I could just feel it in my gut.
Yeah, and I think for game 6, I think for Suns to win, we need to see like equal production from Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. I think the huge difference between these two teams is With Clippers, it could really all come down to Paul George, and everyone else just has to do enough, which they have been doing for all of their wins. But I think with the Suns, you kind of need to see like production from all of the main guys, and I think that's what we've been lacking a few of these games. I
Mhm.
think maybe because of Devin Booker's nose or Chris Paul coming back from COVID, I think like there has been low inconsistencies here and there. Not that they've been playing bad, but like not at their like best that we've seen all season. And I think for them to win Game 6, they each have to like be playing at the best level.
I mean, it's time to shut up and and ball. If you want to make a name in this league, if you want to etch your name in history, you got to do it now. This is when it matters most. Finals on the line for a Phoenix organization that's really been struggling for the last few decades. This would be huge for Phoenix to get back into the finals. Ever they haven't. I don't think they've been in the finals since Charles Barkley got them there
Yeah.
and lost. So they need to kind of change the culture around the franchise. They have to change kind of the vibe per se around the team and just around the city. And Game 6 is opportunity. They have to win Game 6. I think the winner of Game 6 goes to the finals. If Phoenix wins, obviously, it's automatic. The Clippers do it though. I can't see them losing a Game
It's
7 with that momentum.
it's
I
what we've seen
can't.
before. They blow 3-1 lead. We see it in the NBA pretty often, and
I mean, we saw the Clippers do it last year against Denver, so they may have that kind of motivation in their mind. It could go either way, but I'm
Denver did
expecting
that
to.
against Clippers. You mean?
The Clippers lost to the Nuggets.
Yeah,
All right, they're up 3-1, blew it. Yeah.
yeah.
Jamal Murray, went crazy in that series. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him this year, but he'll be back next year, and I'm sure he'll be back with the vengeance. Yeah, has to get done in Game 6. We're both Phoenix fans for the time being until they're eliminated. So Game 6, it has to get done, and that's where I stand on that. But it's been a terrific series. It's really been good basketball. I think the level has been fantastic. The energy has really been at a level that I think we haven't seen in any series throughout the playoffs.
Yeah.
I really do think that these two teams have pushed each other further than we really have experienced this year. So I'm excited for the last two games. It could go either way, and I'm nervous as a Phoenix fan. As a temporary Phoenix fan, I am nervous, but good luck to Chris Paul, because the point guard definitely deserves an opportunity to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
Completely agree with you on that.
Let's switch over to the other conference finals, the one in the East, where Trae Young is taking on Giannis Antetokounmpo. And I say that because it's really not the Bucks versus the Hawks; it's those two guys battling out. Game 1 went to Atlanta. Next two went to Milwaukee. Game 4 goes tonight. Matthew, how do you see the series going? You had Milwaukee in 7. I had Atlanta in 7. Do you still believe in that pick?
I still do, but if Trae Young is out, then I think Milwaukee in 5 or 6 because, or if Trae Young is out completely, then
Yeah,
I'd say in 5
done.
because Atlanta's not winning without Trae Young. Atlanta is a good team, like don't get me wrong, but it's a team that's very centered around Trae Young because not
Of
only Trae Young
course.
score, he also facilitates. We've heard comparisons between Trae Young and like guys like Steph Curry as just a scorer and as a shooter, but I think what's underrated about Trae Young is how well he actually passes the ball and how well he makes his teammates better. And losing that piece, no one, there's not, I don't see anyone that's on Atlanta kind of stepping up into that role. Like we look at a team like Clippers and we see Kawhi out, we can see Paul George step into that role. I don't see, not that anyone in Atlanta is like bad. It's just like they're not at that level of trend. There's no real number 2 option there.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
The one thing I have learned from this, or I've learned a few things. The East stinks. Let's be honest. Let's look at Atlanta's run. The Knicks, who haven't been in the playoffs forever, offensively they stink. Couldn't guard Trae Young. They're great defensively, but couldn't guard Trae Young. So them winning in 5, really adds up when you kind of put 2 and 2 together. The 76ers, Ben Simmons can't shoot. They really choked it. That's your number 1 seed. That's a team representing the Eastern Conference. That's a team that is the gold standard. Come on, Atlanta, I mean, basically, took them to the wood chippers. It was just an embarrassing performance from the 76ers to blow that series, which have never happened. They had all control, but
Yeah,
luckily, we don't have luckily we don't have to watch Philadelphia, Milwaukee because it would just be defense on top of defense on top of defense and just a lack of 3-point shooting, which is really where the NBA has kind of gone. And the NBA, I think, a lot more exciting when you have a lot of 3-point shooters on the floor and you could run up the score. I think we all want to see overs in basketball. We don't want to see anyone go under. So the more overs we get, the better.
Yeah.
But it was really pathetic performance for Philly. Like the East sucks. It sucked for a long time. Miami, who'd they beat last year? They won with a bunch of kids. They're Jimmy Butler and basically 3 kids and Bam Adebayo, Hero, and Robinson. Honestly, Duncan Robinson is an average player when you compare him in the scope of the NBA realm. And Hero really, he took a dive this year, but Hero definitely he has game, but it really didn't see much of it this year. Bam is good, but if you went to the West, his numbers would drop significantly because there's less centers in the East to deal with him than there are in the West. If you go to the West, his numbers it's just automatic that
On
they're
the
going to
East,
drop.
the centers, great centers in the East is Joel Embiid and Bam Adebayo.
Yeah, I mean, who do the Raptors have?
Aaron Baines.
Aaron Baines. Yeah.
Are we disrespecting Aaron Baines here?
Yes. He sucked. We're disrespecting the Raptors, Aaron Baines. We're not disrespecting Phoenix, Aaron Baines, or Boston, Aaron Baines, and we're not disrespecting any other version of Aaron Baines. Just one in Toronto, because honestly, I wanted to die when I was watching him attempt to play center for the Toronto Raptors. Couldn't hit a three. I don't know what he did. But anyways, I digress. Milwaukee's a better team. They have a better group of guys overall. I'm changing my pick to Milwaukee in 6 simply because Trae Young in that fourth quarter, he clearly looked hurt. I don't know if he has enough time to recover from that, injury. I don't know what kind of pain meds he's going to be on tonight, but there better be some pretty strong, painkillers. Maybe give him like a double dose of Vicodin. I really don't know what they have to give him, but they got to give him whatever to get him on the floor because again, they don't have another 2 guy, and it's going to be a pretty lopsided series if the Bucks can avoid dealing with Trae Young by default. If Milwaukee has threes, they're going to win because Giannis does enough inside and does enough on the defense. I mean, Milwaukee's a great defensive side. They do have a lot of guys. They have a lot of size, so it makes it a challenge to really drive in the paint. You really have to shoot threes on this team if you want to beat them because trying to go inside against guys like Giannis and Brook Lopez, even Middleton, if you want to take him inside, it's just not a matchup you win very often. I think Middleton, especially in that game too, was phenomenal, just hitting everything in the fourth quarter. That was a joy to watch. He had it and he never lost that spark. He just started, firing on all cylinders. And if Middleton does that, Atlanta stands no chance. I'm going Milwaukee in 6. I think Atlanta may sneak in one more in game 5. I think the better team is going to win this series because I just don't think Atlanta has enough juice. I don't think Trae Young has enough left in his tank, especially with that bone bruise on the ankle. I think it's a wrap.
Yeah, I can agree with you. And with Milwaukee, it really comes down to Giannis. But you have any night you could have Jrue Holiday pitching, you have Chris Middleton playing, Chris Middleton put close to 40 points.
Jrue Holiday has been the X factor. Thank you for mentioning that because Jrue Holiday is an interesting player because if he struggles offensively, you know what he's bringing defensively. He's the best one-on-one defender in the league, in my opinion. There's just there's no getting around him. But if he's scoring on top of that, game over. So he's one of those rare players. Like you can almost never criticize him because defensively he's so good. Even when he struggles on offense, you can't really say anything. But Jrue Holiday has definitely been the X factor in the latter stages of that Brooklyn series and the entirety of this series so far against the Hawks. So thank you for bringing up Jrue Holiday because that was someone I definitely wanted to mention.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And like I said before, Milwaukee is the more talented team. We know what Giannis can do. We know what Jrue Holiday and Chris Middleton can do. I criticized Giannis before, saying that he can do everything in the first 3 quarters. It's always the 4th quarter, since he's not the best shooter, it's considered he can finish games. But we've seen kind of Chris Middleton do that, especially in that 4th quarter, and we've seen him and Jrue Holiday kind of being the guys that could kind of close games after, of course, centering around Giannis. And because I don't see Atlanta really, especially like you said, with his injury, Trae Young's injury, I don't see Atlanta really matching up to that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting finale. It feels like a win or go home game for Atlanta in that game 4. They really have to win, especially on home court. If they get on 3-1 going back to Milwaukee, really could be a wrap at that point.
Yeah.
But the conclusion of that series will take place this week, as well as the Phoenix Sun series. So we'll be back next week to recap all of the action. Anything can happen at this point. The Phoenix Clippers series could go either way. We're rooting for the Tampa Bay Lightning to not let the Montreal Canadiens have their way in the Stanley Cup Finals. It'd be horrible for Canada. I don't care what anyone says. It would be a huge morale killer. Be the Montreal Canadiens. But from 5-5 Sports, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, as well as Matthew Choi. We're excited to keep bringing you guys content week in and week out, and we look forward to coming back next week and hopefully recapping a positive Stanley Cup experience for the both of us.
Thank you guys for listening.
Okay, see you guys next week.